Hello, my dear addict friends. My name is Emily Sussman, and welcome back to my virtual universe of true love here. It's time for another recovery story time. Of course, we are reading from The Addict's Guide to Recovery, which is the book I wrote and illustrated with the supremely talented Jessie Larson. And today we are already on chapter 7, Admitting Powerlessness. And I'll show you this wonderful illustration. Well, I don't know if wonderful is the right word. It doesn't look very happy to be so powerless. But I think Jessie drew that very well. My dear addict friends, let's talk about the word powerless, shall we? It's a word that struck fear into the heart of many a would-be recovering addict. So much so that quite a few run screaming in the opposite direction from recovery. Here's an example from a call I got from a potential client. She started off by telling me how grateful she was to have found a therapist who specialized in recovery. Then she went on to describe the mounting problems in her life that prompted her call. The husband whose guts she hated because he was never home. The stepdaughter who hated her guts. The career that seemed stuck in neutral. The friends who had abandoned her in her time of need. And the many days spent languishing in a grimy puddle of remorse and regret over how many bottles of wine she had consumed the day before. After that, she inquired about my approach to treatment. "Are you one of those all-or-nothing therapists?" she asked, before daring to utter the dirtiest word in the English language to an addict who's still using. "Are you going to tell me to get sober?" "That decision will always be up to you," I said. "My job is to try to help people move beyond the crazy, painful struggle of trying to control what can't be controlled, so they have the freedom to focus on living their life again." I went on to explain that for the vast majority of recovering people, trying to have just one drink, or the equivalent of another drug or behavior, will fling open the doors to powerlessness again, often sooner rather than later. I don't know if she heard much of what I said after the word powerlessness, though, because she sure was in a hurry to get off the phone after that. "Oh, I don't think I'm powerless over alcohol," she said, before telling me that she would keep looking for a therapist who wouldn't try to take alcohol away from her. "I just want to learn to control my emotions, so I don't feel like I want to drink so much." After she hung up, I felt like banging my head against a wall. "That's putting the cart before the horse," I wanted to shout into the phone she was no longer on the other end of. How could she fail to see how her out-of-control unhappiness was connected to her out-of-control alcohol use? But I do know how that happens. Denial. I remember how hard it was for me for so many years to connect the dots between my addictions and my unhappiness. I was terrified of letting go of drugs and alcohol because substances seemed like the only way to find relief and release from the weight of my feelings. If those were taken away from me, it stood to reason that I would have no power whatsoever to help myself feel better. That's why I understand how impossible, how counterintuitive, and how terrifying the prospect is of giving up the security blanket that is your drug, especially in the midst of your unhappiness. It's human nature to try to protect ourselves from the truth when that truth has terrifying implications. That's why so many addicts spend so long in denial about their powerlessness before the bottom falls out on their lives and they can't ignore the truth a minute longer. So this is what I'd say to an addict struggling to come to terms with their powerlessness. And, along with that, the prospect of sobriety as the inevitable remedy. Admitting powerlessness over your drug doesn't make you a weak person. It doesn't make you a failure either. It doesn't mean you'll never have fun again. And it doesn't mean you'll lose your power to comfort yourself in the face of difficult feelings. Admitting powerlessness is simply one of the first steps you'll have to take to start walking the road of recovery. This is the road that grants you the power to break every limitation you've ever put upon yourself or that others have put upon you. This is the road that grants you the power to overcome the fears and untangle the lies that have prevented you from living a peaceful, free, and happy life as your true self. Unlike the collaborative, cooperative, and interdependent nature of everything else you'll do in recovery, though, admitting powerlessness is a step you'll have to take on your own. I mean that in the sense that the truth of it has to come from you and you alone. Ultimately, I can't tell anyone else that they're powerless and have it mean anything constructive. That's why I'm here to hold your hand, my dear addict friends, as I gently guide you along the road of truth. The road of truth is the road of love, which is the only real security and the only real release from powerlessness. And I don't just mean powerlessness over your drug. I mean powerlessness over your feelings, your thoughts, your behavior, and the direction and the quality of your life itself. Speaking of truth, I'd like to reiterate that admitting powerlessness over your drug is not a moral failing. It has nothing to do with the strength of your character or of your inherent deficiency as a person. Neither is it an indication of how uncool you are, because you just can't control your drug the way other people seem to be able to. Powerlessness over your drug just is. Researchers have pointed to a whole host of factors that contribute to addiction, trying to answer the question of why some people progressively lose control over a certain drug or behavior and others don't. Some research points to genetics, or to social conditioning, or to trauma, or to personality. Some research points to a combination of them all. The why question might be an interesting one, but it's only slightly more helpful to your recovery than trying to answer the shame and blame-laced question of, why me? Do you need to know how electricity works in order to flip on a light switch? Do you need to understand the laws of physics to restrain yourself from jumping off a building? Besides, there will be plenty of time to dig into the roots of your addictive personality, that is, your addict, once you're sober. We can't put the cart before the horse. It's only when you take away your drug, whose function was to numb or transform you, that you'll have access to the feelings and facts that will help you make sense of how your emotional and behavioral patterns came to be. Right now, asking why won't move you forward, nor will raging against the injustice of your condition. Accepting the truth about your powerlessness will. Let's look at a few examples of what everyday powerlessness looks like for an addict. Perhaps you can relate to these instances of your addict robbing your true self of its rightful position as the CEO of your life. Powerlessness is letting your addict drive the car when your kids are in the back seat. Powerlessness is somehow being in the wrong place at the wrong time for each and every one of your DUIs. Powerlessness is bruises from accidents you don't remember. Powerlessness is spending money you don't have on something you don't need. Powerlessness is waking up racked with shame about what you did last night, or not remembering last night at all. Powerlessness is losing things like jobs, marriages, hobbies, good friends that you'd have much preferred to keep. Powerlessness is breaking up with your addict every single night and then getting back together with it the very next day. Powerlessness is hating your addict's guts, even as you're right there with it, feeding it and choosing it above everything and everyone else. Powerlessness is failing to control your use of your drug every time you use it. Even though you swore to yourself that you could control it, you would control it. Just this time, just one more time. Your true self may have 563 excellent reasons to tell your addict to take a hike, and only one bullshit excuse to use your drug. Because I want it. Powerlessness is that one impulsive thought hijacking all your powers of reason at exactly the wrong moment. Please note that you didn't hear living under a bridge, squatting on a dirty mattress, and clutching a paper bag from the package store in any of these examples of powerlessness. That's because there are an awful lot of well-dressed professionals with nice houses and good families who are suffering under the weight of unacknowledged powerlessness. My dear addict friends, no matter who you are or what you look like, addiction always manifests as powerlessness. Not having the power to control your use of your drug. So simple, yet so baffling. So insane! Your addict has taken away your power and left you powerless over your drug. Yet even as the rats are fleeing your addict's sinking ship, you relish the illusory comfort that comes from trying over and over to prove that you are more powerful than your drug. You tell yourself that you'll only use it on weekends or Wednesdays. You'll drink beer but not booze. You'll snort but not shoot up. You'll restrict yourself to betting on basketball instead of going to the casino. But no, you can't control it. As long as you're engaging with your drug, it's not a question of if, but when your drug will deposit you squarely in a steaming pile of powerlessness again. I hate to break it to you, but all that time you've spent negotiating with your drug, you've just been feeding your addict and helping it grow stronger. It's true. The more you try to control your drug, the more powerless you become. That's why the foundation of recovery is surrendering your futile bid for power and control. The battle is fixed and you can't win. Accept it so you don't waste any more time or drag yourself down fighting. Take heart, my dear addict friends, that accepting your powerlessness doesn't mean defeat. It means you're joining forces with the all-powerful ally that is truth. And there's nothing more true than the fact that the truth will set you free. Unconditional love will see to it. That is chapter 7. What was it called? It's Powerlessness? Admitting Powerlessness. That's right. Please join me again next time for much more. Bye, everybody.